See here, because Connor's playing an Explore and we needed a means to be able to have friends challenge each other in these, the goal in Explore for survival events is not just to beat the mountain and make it to the bottom, but it's actually just to descend the furthest distance that you can possible. So because Connor so expertly made it to the bottom of that level alive, we're actually going to shuttle him all the way back up to the top. He jumps right back out, takes only like 2 or 3 seconds for us to reload the entire level, and then he's going to jump out, and now you can see he's actually building on. He's at 2,500 meters because he's actually done a full lap, and he's going to keep building on that distance. So as an expert player, Connor can probably complete 2 or 3 or even 4 laps of this track before he will finally succumb to the forces of nature. And each successive lap obviously gets harder, so we start to amp up weather. Eventually Connor's wingsuit will start to degrade, and it'll allow him to fly for less and shorter distances each time. And there's all kinds of different things built in there to make that experience really fun.
Yeah, and you can see that meter on the right-hand side of the player as I deploy my wingsuit. That's my lift timer, so if my lift timer runs out, I just start to drop, just like there, and then I crash.
Oh, open your wingsuit again. Open it again. So the cool thing about the wingsuit is it's not attached to your board. So even if you wipe out and bail, you can actually, if you're airborne, you can still fly, which is really fun. That was actually an accidental feature discovery that we decided to leave in because it's so awesome. Okay, so why don't we show maybe one more? Let's go to a more typical SSX track. Let's go look at something bright and cheery.
Something fun,
I'd
shall
asked
we?
for a
Let's go to
recommendation,
Alaska.
but no one gave me anything.
Okay,
so
Let's go to Alaska.
Apparently no one cares where you go. They just
They just want to see
show more.
awesomeness.
And someone is saying that you're perhaps not the best player at the game.
Oh, really?
Really?
That was actually just me, but
Someone's saying that, and it's me, Jen, because I've seen Todd play, and he's better.
cool.
All right, let's go over here.
Someone wanted to see darkness. We're not going to show darkness. Too much dark. We need bright and cheery. But darkness is cool.
We can maybe show a
someone
little
let's
quick.
do Patagonia. Can you do Patagonia?
We just did Patagonia.
Oh, guys,
Jen.
that was Patagonia.
Well, that was the Deadly Descent. So
asked.
a couple of the other mountains in
They asked.
Patagonia are actually more,
Happy?
yeah, they're done at sunset. It's beautiful, and the sun is setting, and it's orange sky, and you can actually use your wingsuit there a lot as well.
Okay, well, they want trick mode. They want more.
Yep.
Well, let's just show them everything.
How long have
do
you
you
got?
guys have?
Yeah. We can go through
Just
the
pick
night.
one.
Yeah, we're going to go to Alaska.
We're going to Alaska. It's fine.
Really cool theme in Alaska. We're going to start up on a kind of a little crazy ridge, and then we get down to a valley area, and we've themed Alaska with the Alaskan pipeline, but in true SSX fashion, it's these crazy pipelines that no one would actually ever build, but you can use them to trick off of and have a lot of fun, which I will attempt to demonstrate right now.
No, you will demonstrate.
Yes.
So a couple of things I can talk about. I alluded to this earlier, but I get asked this question all the time, which is how do we prevent rewind from being an exploit as you play through the game? So what we do with rewind is first and foremost, as you are rewinding, the clock keeps moving forward. So Connor, start rewinding. So Connor starts rewinding. You can see the clock in the top left corner is actually still going forward. So while you're going backwards, everybody else that you're racing against is still going forward, which is basically an automatic handicap for the feature that makes it not exploitable. You have to be able to use it as a skilled player. You have to be able to use it in very short little bursts. But it can be still very useful because if you happen to miss a shortcut that you know about and you know that shortcut shaves off 8 or 10 seconds on a level, having to do a 1 or 2 second rewind is still advantageous to you than just missing it altogether. And then in trick events, the other thing you'll notice, Connor, go ahead and hit a rewind again, is as Connor starts rewinding, you'll see there's a negative score building up in the bottom. So we actually count rewind as a negative trick. And the other thing that we do is if you happen to bail and you lose a big combo, which is the most painful thing in playing in trick events when you're building a 50, 60 move combo and then you bail and you lose it all, millions of points. It's awful and wonderful at the same time. You can't rewind a lost combo, so once those points are gone, they are gone. But it's still actually useful to use in tricks, in trick events. So here's a pipeline. This is a pretty awesome level actually when you don't do that. you can ride and jump off the pipeline and do some pretty cool stuff. And there's some gap sections which if you nail them properly, You can jump from one to another. That was awesome. There you go.
There, that's awesome.
And you can
Come
get
on.
it, and you can get up, and you can ride on the pipeline and jump from one to another. And the pipeline's actually strategically built to be both a really cool trick opportunity, and there's some longer paths where you can ride the pipeline for extended periods of time. And it's also, there's some shortcuts that use the pipeline as well, so you can actually, if you take the right sections of pipe, you can find some faster paths down the mountain if you happen to be racing down this track. So pretty much every drop in the game, we let you both race it and trick it, and if there's any sort of metagame on top of it, or even if there's just enough places where you could fall to your doom and die, we'd have a survival drop on it as well. So it's really cool to be able to ride the same track, and just like in SSX in the past where they used the same track for both race and slope style, a track takes on a completely different meaning if you're doing a race event versus you're doing a trick event. Which is pretty fun.
And we also have the luging and the skeleton in the game.
Do the skeleton.
Hold on. Be patient, Todd. I'll hit a rock instead.
Okay.
Almost
Here you
the
go.
same.
Here's your chance.
Okay, I'm gonna start throwing questions at you guys as you're
No, that's
continuing to
that's
demo
the luge.
when he
Skeleton.
There's the
Other
skeleton.
one.
That's skeleton.
No, double there you go. That's the
That's
skeleton.
luge.
No,
man.
Oh, that's luge.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, now that we've
Established
definitely
that I
proven that
don't
we don't
know
know
my
our winter
Olympic
sports, we're going to move on and start taking some questions. So we've had a couple questions, one from Irving about the open world, and one from
Irving?
Daniel. Yeah, Irving. And one
Irving.
from Daniel about 3D track mapping, or 3D mapping of the tracks.
Sure.
So I'm going to tweak those questions and ask, I hear that there's some NASA data that made up your open world. Can you speak to that,
Yep.
please?
So
Todd?
in early days, we knew we wanted to build a huge world. I said it was one of our big goals in the game. I obviously missed this off the top in my intro. And so what we did is, we started to think about how many tracks are we going to have in this game. And to put this in perspective, the original SSX game had 8 tracks in it. SSX Tricky, which came out less than a year later, actually just used the same 8 tracks. They made a lot of improvements and added some things, but it was literally the same 8 tracks. SSX 3, when it came out, had the open mountain. It had 3 peaks within a giant open mountain, and if you actually go back and look at it, it was 15 or 16 unique tracks. And so we kind of thought about, and then, SSX on Tour had 13 tracks. So we thought about it, and we thought, well, how many would be appropriate for the first game on this generation of consoles? Is it 30 tracks? Is it 40 tracks? What would it be? And so, I always believe that the quickest and fastest path to innovation is to challenge really smart people with a seemingly unsolvable problem. And so I just asked my engineers, I said, I would like to have 300 tracks in SSX, and how do we go and build that? And their first reaction was, well, we'll need 10 years and about 300 people and about $100 million, and then we can build you 300 tracks. And we neither had that much time, that many people, or that much money. So interestingly, a couple days later, one of the engineers actually grabbed me and said, I found out something really cool, and that's that NASA has topography data of the entire planet Earth, and it's actually available in the public domain. And I downloaded all of it into our mountain building tool. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And he's like, name any mountain on planet Earth. And I was like, I don't know, Mount Everest. And he's like, went on to Google, looked up Mount Everest, found out the latitude and longitude coordinates, punched it into Mountain Man, and in about 28 seconds, Mountain Man created a 3-dimensional model of Mount Everest.
What's
and
Mountain
all
Man?
this, Mountain Man, is our level building tool that we had been working on. And it built that mountain and all of the surrounding mountains in about 28 seconds to a frightening degree of detail. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I think we're onto something. Now, what we realized, to give this a caveat, very quickly thereafter, is that there was no gameplay found in any of those mountains. They were still low enough resolution that, it gave you the general shape of the mountain, and the mountains looked great from a distance to create the vista, but it didn't create SSX gameplay. So we just used that as a starting point. It was kind of like gave us a big leg up to get us started in building our regions. And then in typical, the way that SSX is typically built, we started to just mold and shape and build that terrain and build on what we found there to create the kind of gameplay experience that we wanted.
Cool. Okay, let's go to a specific question about using wingsuits. Can you use a wingsuit, Todd?
Yes, you can
In a trick
use a
track.
wingsuit. Yes, you can use it in a trick track. The interesting thing about
and
wingsuits
Connor's doing it right now.
in trick tracks, are you in a trick or race?
I'm
event
actually in
right
a
now?
race, Jen.
Well, I was just testing you.
So you can use it in a trick event. It's It's probably the least useful in trick events. You can use it in a few events quite strategically to get to areas of the mountain you can't otherwise get to that have some cool trick opportunities. But we don't actually score the wingsuit very high as far as like a big trick score or give you a big trick points for doing it, because it's really more of a find the fastest path kind of thing. It definitely factors more into survival and into race events.
Cool. Now this one I want to say because it sounds interesting. I don't know anything about it. Is there a damage system a la Hall of Meat from Skate?
So there is a damage system, but there's no mode, like in Hall of Meat, there was a mode built around how much can you ruin and wreck your player. We don't have that, but there is a damage system. Damage actually factors into a number of the survival levels. So a couple of the deadly descents we haven't talked about are shown. One of them is trees, another one is rock. And in both of those, you're trying, in trees, you're trying to make it down a course with trees scattered all over the place, and you're trying not to bash into all those trees. You actually equip your player with armor, and as you bash into trees, your armor chips away, and when your armor runs out, you then have a health meter, and if you bash into too many trees and your health meter hits 0, it's game over. So health does factor into survival events, but not the same way as it did in Hall of Meat.
Okay. So on to graphics. So people think the game looks good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good.
Thank you.
What graphics engine are you using? It looks like Frostbite 2 level quality.
Very nice.
Is it?
It is not
This is from
Frostbite
Nacho.
2.
Thank you, Nacho.
Yeah, our tech is built on an engine that we call Wireframe. It's one that was used for Fight Night, the Fight Night series, Fight Night Round 4 and Fight Night Champion. We also took the base level physics that was used. Fight Night 4 and Fight Night Champion had some of the most advanced physics. And you'd think, well, how do those physics from a boxing thing translate over? But a lot of the core tech and the underlying sort of math of the physics was the starting point that we used in SSX, and then we just, moved it over into the sort of snowboarding world. So our game is built on Wireframe, but thank you very much for that compliment, and I will pass that on to our rendering team and our art directors because they'll love to hear that.
Great. So back to your points about NASA. You mentioned 28 seconds
Yes.
the first time. So how long did it take to recreate each mountain after you had that built into game?
Yeah, the first step was 28 seconds, and the next one was months and months of work. So, but the 28 seconds probably saved us some months of work that would have taken us to kind of build up the general shape of the mountains and to create all of the surrounding vistas. And I mean, even our globe, if you look at it, is used in a lot of the starting point of everything that you see as you dive into each one of those regions is created as you're using the NASA data as a starting point for that. So that would have taken artists a really long time to build, but yet we wanted our art team to be focused on what matters most to our consumers, which is gameplay, gameplay. But we think we kind of got the best of both worlds there.
Cool. So for the people down in Latin America, what mountain ranges do you have?
So Patagonia is the only region in South America in our game. So Patagonia, which has Fitzroy, Cerro Torre, and what's the other one, Connor?
Cerro Pelon?
Cerro Peloni, yeah. Sorry, we're probably butchering the pronunciation of those
Cerro
right
Pelon.
now. So Patagonia is the only region in South America right now, although we looked at a lot of different ranges. It was an interesting challenge for us, with the ability to create any mountain range in the world. We started looking at all of the mountains. I've learned more about mountains and ranges than I ever thought I would need to know in my entire life. Working on SSX. But we settled on Patagonia because really it's some of the most incredible and steepest and most gnarly looking awesome mountains that we found in the entire world. Patagonia is actually one of my favorite regions.
Well, good. I bet to these people as well when they get a chance to play it.
And it's also the place where you actually unlock and learn how to use the wingsuit, which makes
Yes.
it that much cooler, which is arguably the coolest piece of gear in our game.
Yes.
Okay, learning
Yeah.
to fly. Got it. Okay, a couple questions about online and local multiplayer as well as head-to-head online. So I'm going to make that into one larger question. Let's talk about online in general.
Let's, Jen. Let's.
There was a question about, is there only head-to-head online or will there be anything cooler?
Is
I think that's a nice way of discussing our online.
So no, I mean it's actually the opposite. It's not really an only head-to-head online. So maybe I didn't explain it properly when we were sort of going through. So global events are your ability to jump in. You can can we go back and forth between the game footage? And so if Connor just jumps into global events and I talk
not
for a
connected
moment. Oh, you're not
online.
connected online right now. Never mind. Let's just talk about it in
Imagine.
theory then. So in global events, you can jump in and this entire world that we've been showing and Connor's been kind of cruising around, on every single one of those drop points, there is a live tournament that's always going on. So let's imagine a scenario. Let's say that track that Connor was playing, that he was using the wingsuit in Patagonia. Let's say for that drop, we decided that the most fun thing to do on this drop is see who can set the fastest time in 1 hour. So the clock starts